Hi guys, it's September 11th, 2014. It's 13 years to the day since the terrorist attacks of 9/11, the attacks on America, and we've decided to do a special about it here on Two Guys, One Garage. The content that we're going to talk about today and the opinions that we're going to share are totally our own. We don't want to cause offence to anybody who's listening to this, so let's do this. It's David.
It's Phil.
And it's Two Guys, One Garage, September 11th special.
Holy shit, Martin. Oh! That's the other building. That's terrorist. Other building? That's terrorist, bro.
What happened? Oh my God! Oh my God!
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
The entire building has just collapsed, as if a demolition team set off. When you see the old demolitions of these old buildings, it folded down on itself, and it is not there anymore.
This is as close as we can get to the base of the World Trade Center. You can see the two towers. Debris continues to fall and to rain on the people below. There are people hanging from the windows 90 stories up, and a number of bodies have actually hit the pavement.
I think that there's some really crazy people in this world.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
Absolutely not. I've seen at least 10 people fall to their death and just splat like a ripe tomato. It's awful, but it's I don't know who was at the controls or what was going on in the plane, but it was not a bomb. It was an American Airlines jet that crashed into the tower.
Explosions rocked the Pentagon as well. Apparently, a hijacked plane crashed into the Pentagon.
You can see the firemen assembled here, the police officers, FBI agents, and you can see the two towers. A huge explosion now, raining debris on all of us. We better get out of the way.
Pray that God took them quick. And then we saw the people jumping. We thought it was debris, and we realized it was people jumping.
So, September 11th, 2001, Phil. It was a Tuesday. I'll always remember where I was that day.
And where was that? At school, like myself?
No, came back from school and got in, and my mum was sat on the table in the living room, looking at the TV, staring at the TV, in total shock at what she was seeing.
Yeah.
And I remember that it's stained, it's imprinted in me. In my brain, just watching these events unfold.
Yeah, when it's one of those like huge events, like world events.
Yeah.
Like the Diana's a similar one for me, where I remember exactly what happened. But yeah, for me it was walking home from school and some kid came up and said, "You know the Twin Towers? Some terrorists have just flew planes at them." I don't know if he said that, but he basically point out that these planes have been flown into the buildings, and I was vaguely aware what the Twin Towers were. I wasn't 100% sure, but I was like, I'm pretty sure they're massive skyscrapers in New York. Yeah. And I didn't believe him. I was just like, what the hell is he talking about? And then when I got in and saw the footage, it was just like, wow, what the hell am I seeing here? This is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
It's like a movie.
Yeah. Scary.
It was just the craziest like footage that probably exists, to be honest. Like,
It's one of these events, disasters. It's one of these disasters where we've got a lot of footage of it from the day.
Yeah.
Apart from the Pentagon attack, that's a conspiracy in itself.
Yeah, we'll get there.
But there's so much footage of these towers being hit, and just the entire crisis until the towers fall, and then beyond that, it's got to be one of the best documented disasters of recent times, and probably, in my opinion, the biggest conspiracy of all time.
I would say so without a doubt, just because of what most conspiracies claim it involves. Their own government, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like massacring 1,996 people.
Yeah.
Wow, that is a lot of people who did not deserve to die at all.
Just going to work, just having
totally
a standard day,
yeah.
And then that thousands of people's lives are changed forever, because the amount of people that would have been affected beyond the victims is monumental, just in terms of friends,
families,
colleagues.
Yeah.
It's huge. It would have affected a huge network of people. I mean, it affected the world.
Oh, it definitely did. Like, because I remember I was only like 14 or something like that, and I was like straight away I was like, America's not gonna lie back and take that, and I was like totally on their side. Now this little kid in England, got nothing to do with America, but I was thinking, no, come on, let's go and let's sort this out. Let's get whoever's behind this, and I'm pretty sure that's exactly how most Americans felt on that day as well.
And maybe that's one of the reasons why it happened.
Yeah.
Now, to the listeners, you've got to remember that this is a conspiracy podcast. It's one of, I suppose, one of the categories that it falls under. Yeah.
Without a doubt.
So, like I said in the introduction, there, some things that we're going to talk about might offend some people, and that's okay, because everybody's entitled to have their own opinion. We aren't experts on 9/11. We're just gonna mention facts that other people have. Well, they're not facts, but mention.
The thing is, it shouldn't really offend anybody, really, because there's a lot of like holes in the official account.
Well, there is, and
there's just like a lot of questions like that haven't really been answered, to a good enough standard. Yeah. The Pentagon, as you mentioned before, that is the perfect example of, well, they like sort of haven't given us enough evidence to back their official theory.
No. Yeah.
So it'd be stupid not to ask questions about that.
There's a lot of people, well, most people I speak to about September 11th think there's something fishy. There's something in the water. It's not right. There's some truths aren't being told here. Mm-hmm. We're getting fed a lot of lies, a lot of bullshit, and it's not cool. It's not cool. There's too many holes in the story. Yeah.
I mean, what I'd like to know is, what's your position on this? Like, do you flat out believe in like the standard conspiracy version of events where it's an inside job? Are you on the fence, or do you believe in the official account?
I don't believe the official account. I think it's far too far-fetched and ridiculous. I haven't fully made my mind up yet, but I definitely think something's not right.
Because that's the thing. There's not really enough evidence one way or the other to sort of pick a side at this point. Is that, like, obviously early on when you first start watching all these like conspiracy documentaries and stuff, you dive straight into well, that's what it was then. It was an inside job, the government's responsible for it and all this kind of thing. But then as the years pass and you hear like some of the rebuttals and stuff like that, you're like, there's sort of like arguments for both versions.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. But then you hear this information that back in the day America already had the idea of using a fake plane crash as propaganda. Yeah. So it's kind of it makes you think.
Was that? Did that involve Cuba?
I think it was. Yeah, it was to initiate an attack on Cuba, as far as I'm aware, but it didn't happen.
There was sort of. I think the plan was to like shoot down a passenger plane.
Yeah. Stage it basically.
And blame it on Cuba. Yep. And use that as like a pretext for going in and invading Cuba. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely been on the table before. Like, this is a possibility to get us into war and get the people on our side. Mm-hmm. Same with the whole Pearl Harbor thing, because that happened, it allowed the American public to therefore support America's involvement in the Second World War. So, I mean, that's all just totally anecdotal stuff.
But it does make you think. So, let me give you guys a bit of a preposterous introduction to 9/11. So, we've got 19 hijackers under the direction of Osama bin Laden, who, using box cutters, took control of 4 commercial planes between the 19 of them. And these hijackers, with their extremely limited skills and flight knowledge, somehow managed to evade America's air defense system NORAD and hit 75% of their targets with stunning accuracy. World Trade Towers 1, 2 and 7 collapsed due to structural failure through fire, which is kind of nuts. In a controlled demolition sort of way. When you watch them towers come down, it's just kind of like, what's going on?
It really resembles controlled demolition.
It really does. Especially number 7. Because that's not so much of a tower, it's more just like the sort of thing you'd see brought down on TV on a controlled demolition. And it just drops. It's mad. There was also the plane that hit the Pentagon, which vaporized on impact and just disappeared. And you've got the plane that crashed in Shanksville, which was the story of that was made into a movie. United Airlines Flight 93. That also vanished on impact.
Yeah, that's
tiny crater. Where's the rest of the plane, man?
Pretty interesting, because that never ever usually happens when planes crash.
Well, no, it doesn't. I've got a photo up here, Phil. Right? Look at that. That's a plane crashed. That's an aerial photograph of airplane wreckage. I mean, obviously, it does depend on speed and angle, etc., etc. But
either way, there's going to be tons of identifiable.
Be a lot of wreckage.
Yeah, like for example, a tail section, wings, engines, because these are such like massive parts of the plane that they're not just going to just disappear.
No,
they're not just going to vaporize.
They're not,
as the official version states.
A plane can't just disappear. It's a huge thing.
Yeah, a plane can't disappear, yet somehow the DNA of the people is still there. Like of the passengers is still there to be used to like identify them.
Yeah, so
you know what I mean? Like,
a plane can totally disintegrate, vaporize, and disappear from all existence, and yet we can still find Qurans lying about and passports from hijackers and things
in pristine condition.
So it's, I mean, who are they trying to kid? And the FBI sealed off the area where that plane went down in Shanksville.
The Shanksville one, yeah.
Yeah, and they got rid of all the video footage from around the Pentagon.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay, the black boxes have disappeared. It's just, there's so many holes. These are the holes coming out in the whole story of what is it, the 9/11 Commission report?
Yeah.
Which the World Trade Tower number 7 wasn't mentioned.
Just wasn't in it.
We'll forget about number 7. It's alright.
But was it a 47-story skyscraper?
It was huge.
Big skyscraper. Yeah. Just comes crashing to the ground, but it's not really worthy of a mention.
We'll just ignore that one.
Yeah.
I think that one fell at about 5:20.
Yeah.
So that was quite a few hours later, and they said that came down because of a fire inside. Again, how is a fire going to bring down a building?
Well, that's the thing. That's what you always hear is how with steel structures, never before or since has any steel structure collapsed due to a fire.
Mm-hmm.
Yet somehow 3 collapsed due to fire on that day. Like,
and these are huge buildings.
Yeah,
I mean, these are massive.
That designed, like the Twin Towers. They're specifically, supposedly, designed to be able to withstand the impact of possibly like multiple jet airliners.
Mm-hmm.
So, how did it come crashing down?
Well, these are the questions that need asking. So let's start with the hijackers.
Yeah.
Okay, these 19 hijackers who were orchestrated from a cave in Afghanistan by Osama bin Laden.
Bin Laden.
Bin Laden. Osama bin Laden.
I like that one.
So, did these 19 guys just hop over here and just somehow make their way across Europe and get to America and just do this? Is this even possible to just pull off?
What in terms of the basic hijack in itself, like
4 planes hijacked, and all but one of them hit a target.
Say that was probably possible. Like just actually taking control of the plane, like hijacking the plane. That was probably possible.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be the bad cop to your good cop. Then I'll play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say, well, okay, what you've said's a valid point, but what about the air defense system in North America, NORAD?
So say they take control of the plane, and then how do they stay in control of the plane?
Yeah, the air defense NORAD didn't get there in time both times.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the
things.
And
this plane went right the way out, and then a long way out to come back in.
Yeah, they're sort of meant to. From what I understand, from what I've heard, like the protocol is, if they kind of, like if they, what do they call them, air traffic control?
Yeah.
If they're made aware of like a hijacking, they've literally got like a couple of minutes to try and get that sorted out, and if it's not sorted out like really, really soon, they've got to then contact what I'm presuming there's NORAD, and they are then meant to scramble
jets,
the jets up there, the fighters, again really quickly.
Yeah,
it's not going to take that long. Certainly not allowed to fly. Not meant to have a plane flying around, hijacked for like up to an hour or whatever it was. You know, what did you say? 80 minutes? 80?
Something like that. It was a ridiculous amount of time.
Yeah, that's definitely enough time for like these fighter jets to be able to catch up and locate it.
Those vehicles go really quick. They're really fast.
I mean, one thing they do say, like the official story I think points out, is how they turned off the hijacker supposedly turned off the transponders which supposedly would get rid of their altitude and speed readings to those on the ground, like the air traffic control. But they should still show up on a radar. So they should still be like trackable. But what you find out as well is that on that day, you had this war game scenario. So they were practicing. They were like this idea of multiple planes being hijacked, flying around the sky. They were like simulating this through these war games scenarios, to the point where when they get these calls through, like the actual calls from presumably air traffic control, and they're going, "Is this real world or exercise?" Because they're like, "What the hell?"
But that's funny, isn't it? Because there's been a few cases where there's been a mock situation going on the day of an attack. For instance, 7/7, where there was meant to be there was an underground
it was exactly
explosion.
the same thing.
And they were planning for that, weren't they? It was a test drill or something.
Yeah.
Same with the Oklahoma bombing.
At all the same tube stations as what actually got affected, by the way. They reckon the chances of that actually happening are like just so ridiculous that it's just impossible, effectively.
Don't worry, it's just a coincidence.
That's a future podcast, that one, like 7/7.
7/7, yeah.
And that's something that I wonder. The date, right? 7/7. 9/11. Did they pick something like where it's the same digit, 7/7? Because that in America, right? 9/11. We would never say 9/11. We don't put the month and then the day.
No, we don't.
We put the day then the month.
Yeah.
31st of September. Well, in this case, 11th of September.
Yeah.
And then the year. But the Americans go with the month.
They do, yeah.
And then the year.
Yeah.
And I think, so did they? If it was like a global thing, did they orchestrate it so it was, like a 7 and a 7, so there's no confusion, so that, you know what I mean, like as opposed to them getting confused, thinking, like, say if it was 7/11,
yeah,
and them thinking it was, I'm not even gonna try and figure out what that is, November, but really it was July. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, they get confused.
So I kind of think like, that's a bit strange how it just happened to be 7/7, so no confusion on their part.
But I'm gonna take 2 steps back about what we've been saying about NORAD, and I'm gonna say, well, hang on, how come all of these hijackers took control of all these flights with box cutters?
See, but for me,
because surely they kind of get weapons on board, and there's gonna be a lot of people on board who aren't gonna be willing to be hijacked. You can't get guns on a plane. I presume they didn't get guns on a plane.
To be honest, I reckon you could do that. If there was a couple of people, if there's just a couple of people, especially if they're screaming, there's a bomb on board, everyone, so do as you're told. As soon as you're doing that, like, oh shit, yeah, I definitely don't want to stand up and jeopardise our safety here. I don't even feel like you would need weapons in that scenario. Like, if you were lucky enough not to have, like, really courageous people on board who would just go for it. If you're lucky enough to just have, like, standard people, a plane full of average people, then I reckon that would be fairly easy to do. Especially because wasn't just like one guy versus the plane. It was like, if there was 19 hijackers, so what's that, like at least 4 people per plane or something like that?
Yeah.
4 or 5 people on each plane. So if that and these people generally look a little bit different, don't they? And they're kind of synonymous with, dodgy behaviour. When they start talking about bombs and stuff, it's like, yeah, probably going to believe them then. You know what I mean?
Okay, well, let's talk about this, right? Some of these men are still alive.
Say what?
Some of these, at least several of these hijackers are still alive. What's going on?
Well,
what is going on?
Good question.
I've got a quote here from Abdulaziz Al-Amouri, right? And he said, this is a quote from him: "I couldn't believe it when the FBI put me on their list. They gave my name and my date of birth, but I am not a suicide bomber. I am here. I am alive. I have no idea how to fly a plane."
Yeah. Just makes you wonder, like,
what did he do? Did you think he parachuted out the plane, or?
just
I don't think so.
But then that gets you back to the in the case of the Twin Towers, how these buildings came tumbling down. Yeah, the passports were found in pretty good condition there. So
3 huge buildings crashed down. Inside of one of the aeroplanes, there was a guy with one hell of a protected passport.
Yeah.
And it survives a fireball. It survives the carnage of the
they should make the planes out of that. Make the buildings out of that material.
So this passport, right? It survived, The FBI for 6 months reported, we have this passport, we've got the proof, it was this guy, he was in on this. Then it turned out that guy was alive.
Yeah.
And then later on they released a statement saying that the passport was a rumour that might be true.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what the fuck's going on? What is going on?
Too many questions.
Too many questions. It should be a straight up disaster for what it is, but it's not. There's too many questions that go on and on and on and on. You could talk about 9/11 for hours, discussing all these little inaccuracies in the official story, things that aren't right.
Yeah.
It's nuts, and it's no wonder so many so-called conspiracy theorists cling to 9/11 as like a base point, because it's so fucking nuts.
Well, that's as you're saying. It's the go-to conspiracy for the conspiracy minded out there, because of the sheer like volume of holes in the official account.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that it was an inside job, but all that's pointing out is that the official story doesn't answer all the questions. It just doesn't answer all the questions.
It doesn't.
Again, to point out, World Trade Center 7 just isn't even mentioned, to my knowledge, anyway, from what I've like heard people describe.
In the commission report.
Yeah, in the commission.
What about the fact that the BBC had stated that Building 7 had collapsed and came down when it was in the shot behind the woman who was reporting that it had collapsed?
I mean,
I can see it. It's over your shoulder.
At first, I used to think, like, oh yeah, that's damning evidence against them. Like, oh, that was the script there getting sent a little bit too early.
Yeah.
You know, but now I think, not necessarily. That could easily have just been a case of like, oh yeah, this you know, so whoever's reporting from New York, like, across back to the BBC saying this building's looks like it's going to come down any minute now. And then someone mishearing it. It's just someone going, oh yeah, that building's came down.
No, it was definitely reported as having came down.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm saying that could easily have just been someone making a mistake. Like, so, like, I'm on about like somebody feeding the news station, like, oh, this is about to happen, or this looks like it may happen, and then what? Oh, that fell down. Oh, by the way, everyone, it's fell down.
Right.
No, I didn't fucking say that, but never mind. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So at first, I did think that was really good evidence, like, for it being an inside job. But now I think, nah, with all the chaos and all that could have been a mistake.
Well, do you think it should have came down the way it did, though?
No.
What about the fact that
I don't think it should have came down, man.
what about the fact that people heard explosions coming from the basements of the towers?
Well, that's interesting because
before and after the planes hit,
it would sort of make sense. If you're looking at it from like a controlled demolition, this is what I just read the other day.
Okay.
Is that generally the charges are set off like from the bottom upwards.
Right.
You know, so like boom, 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 like gone up. But obviously, in the case of the Twin Towers, it looks like if there was charges, it sort of like appears like it was from the top down. So these massive bangs in the basement, that probably backs up the idea of like a demolition like theory, because like they are weakening it like earlier on for them to be able to collapse properly into its own like footprint type of thing.
Yeah.
There was a guy down there, wasn't there? That
I was watching a video.
Janitor.
Yeah, I think he used an underground tunnel to go under, like, to the world. What I don't know if it was one or two. He went between the two of them, using an underground tunnel, and he heard the explosion. I think he was like actually knocked over from an explosion when he was down there.
Yeah, he thought it was like an earthquake at one point. He said everything was shaking, the whole building was shaking. Yeah. So was this before either of the towers had been struck?
I've been reading.
Or had just one of the towers been struck?
I think this was.
Or both?
It could have been both, but I think there was an explosion before the first plane, or around about the same time, and then there was other subsequent ones kind of after.
Yeah.
I mean, I was watching a video in terms of if you're going to go with the official story and say that yes, it came down because of the heat from the fire. It was, you know, there was jet fuel in there. Apparently that doesn't burn hot enough to be able to melt steel. But apparently the fire spread and burnt carpets, and there's a shitload of paper items in there. It burnt all them up, and it was that sort of office heat that the plane fuel caused, that the fire from the exploding plane caused, that created the immense heat that brought the rest down.
Yeah.
But that's still kind of flawed because
I know
it's steel. That's a lot of steel.
To me, obviously, I know nothing about like architecture, engineering, science.
We're not experts.
No,
this
no,
is
no.
just conjecture, isn't
But to me, what I would imagine to be the case would be, say if the steel did like melt or weaken to a point where it was gonna like collapse and couldn't support the upper section anymore. I kind of get the impression that it would just like sort of fall off the building.
Yeah.
And not like fall down, but then
how? See, that's the thing, because
it just seems like there's so much strength in all those like columns below, all those massive steel girders like below. That shouldn't have been affected.
No, it shouldn't have been. It could. Why would that? Because it was probably hit about 2/3 up, wasn't it? Maybe a touch more.
Yeah.
4/5 up or something. So how did that burning bring the entire thing down instead of just maybe breaking off the top and crumbling down? How the fuck did it bring down the entire tower? Not just one tower, 3 towers.
Yeah, and that's what they say. It was this pancake effect, where the floor just falling on top of floor, going all the way down, just flattening like a pancake.
Free falling.
But then it would say
10 seconds.
Yeah, but then like if that like floor falling on top of floor and then that crushing down another floor and going down that pancake effect, that would still, in theory, leave these massive steel columns.
Yeah.
Which would be the floors falling in on each other. But then these columns shouldn't have just collapsed into dust.
And what about these girders that are sticking up that look like they've been cut off?
Yeah,
an angle,
like
at the bottom,
like pretty nice and precise angled cuts as well.
Which you would have thought that if there was immense pressure coming down, if anything, it would bend and contort before snapping, and not make these perfect chop-offs.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
It's a bit fishy, isn't it?
It is. You see, the more you talk about it, the more fishy you realise it becomes. I can understand. I've said this to Phil before we start recording this podcast. When you watch footage, like from the day, and if you watch this documentary out there, well, all the documentaries about 9/11 are kind of heartbreaking, but there's this one called 102 Minutes That Changed America. Have you seen that one?
Seen that a few times.
I can understand that if you're watching that as an average Joe, who's somebody who's not a conspiracy, or even somebody that is, you watch that and you see a very human side of the disaster, because you see people crying, you see people that didn't make it, and there's phone calls from people in the tower that you hear, and it's very easy to understand why people wouldn't think that their fellow men could do that to other human beings.
Yeah.
There's no way the government would do this to us. It's too horrific.
Especially like the cabal that's meant to protect you.
Yeah.
Like it's their duty, like the government, it's their duty to like first and foremost protect you and ensure your safety. So yeah, like that, it does just seem preposterous and so unlikely. I had a good quote actually, what I heard from Hitler, believe it or not. Let's see if I can find it. Basically, it was from Mein Kampf.
All right.
Can I find it? Give us a second. Too many notes. Right. Basically, Hitler supposedly said, the greater the crime perpetrated by the leadership, so the greater the crime perpetrated by the leadership, the less the likelihood that the people will believe that the leadership are capable of such a crime. So, if the leadership is willing to do something so like ridiculous and crazy, then that the chances of the people believing that it was them are a lot less, because it's just so like alien to this, like, to the collective conscience. You know what I mean? Like, like there's no way they would have done that to us.
They wouldn't do that to us. They love us.
Yeah.
Well, look at what's happened since. We've gone to the Middle East. We've been in there for the past 13 years. We're still hanging about. We're just moving from country to country. You've got all this IS kicking off now. Gaddafi a few years back. Saddam before him. Osama bin Laden before him. And then before him, these attacks. And it's just like, it's almost opened a can of worms. I mean, we've always had problems with the Northeast. We've always had problems with the Middle East, but it's totally different now. It's changed things. Would you not agree? In terms of us first going into Afghanistan to find Osama bin Laden.
Yeah.
Who, you know, is there any reason to believe that he actually conducted these attacks? And then we went over there, and since we went over there, all sorts of crazy shit's kicked off in the Middle East.
Yeah, it's really created a massive divide now between the West and the rest. You know,
yeah,
hasn't it? Like, just
totally.
massively
Huge.
And you don't always know, because the media's so, like,
you can't trust the media,
snidey, like,
and you can't. Can you trust your government? Who can you trust?
That's it. So you don't really know how different the world actually is, because like it hasn't been any different here in northeast of England. You know what I mean? So you can't always trust the media and how it's reporting stuff.
Yeah.
But based on the media, because that's what I'm not going out and flying anywhere and getting first-hand accounts of anything. You know, I'm basing all my stuff on newspapers and you know, Sky News and BBC News. But based on that media, that mainstream media, it does seem like things are a lot worse now.
Yeah.
You know,
you see, the public always remember an image. Little details a lot of the public won't be clued up on. For instance, the passport. But people will always remember the sight of those planes hitting those towers, and it was instantly said, I don't know how long after it was, could have been the day after, Osama bin Laden did this. Taliban in Afghanistan, right, let's get him.
Yeah.
People instantly associate with that. The little details that many of us conspiracy theorists pick up on, the general public don't remember and they won't cling to. But I think more people are waking up, so it's things that are happening in the world now in 2014. It's not as easy for them to get away with shit because a lot more people are waking up, and it's probably thanks to the internet.
I was just about to say, the internet is playing a massive, like, the pivotal, like, role in all of this. Even though we had the internet back then, it seems to, the internet's exploded, like, exponentially since then. Like,
it's huge. Yeah,
it's been the best thing in the world for conspiracy theory, isn't it? You know what I mean? The amount of material out there, how much of it's credible or not, I'm not entirely sure, but it's certainly interesting. But it's good to what I take from conspiracy, though, isn't whether there is actually ever any given conspiracy. It's that you should always question.
Yeah.
You shouldn't just accept things at face value. You should always be wanting to question, and effectively what this all, like, equates to is thinking for yourself.
Yeah.
Can you make your own mind up, or do you need your media, your government,
to tell
your
you what
educators
to
tell you how to think and how to feel and how to act?
Yeah.
Because I've always been of the mindset from being a little kid. I've always been like, no, I'll make my own opinion up.
Keep an open mind and don't be a sheep.
Yeah.
Be unique. Think outside the box.
Precisely.
Don't be told what to think and what to believe.
It's dangerous once you do fall in that. I mean, to some extent, everyone is.
It does change your life because you look at things at a totally different perspective.
Yeah, you look at yourself from a different perspective.
Absolutely.
Because you approach yourself with more of like an honest and open, like nature. Like, you try to figure yourself out more. You know, because we're all very accustomed to, like, bullshitting ourselves, aren't we?
We are.
Like, I'm not envious. I'm not pissed off by this, or whatever it might be. But once you open that mind up, you can accept. You know what? Oh shit! Yeah, I'm totally jealous.
Yeah.
Like, oh fuck! I wish I had made that decision, and I think I've made the wrong decision. You know, whatever it is, you can be honest with yourself, and that's a good thing for, like, your development. You know what I mean? As a human, especially when you're saying be unique.
Yeah.
Well, to be unique, you've probably got to be aware on some level. You know what I mean?
Take a step back. Don't believe everything you're told. Take a deep breath. Look at something twice. Make up your own mind. Don't let somebody lead you. And we're not trying to lead people. We're just pointing things out with this. Because this was a tragedy. I was only 13 at the time, but it's awful. I mean, even watching the footage now, it's not diluted down because of the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's still awful. It always will be awful. It's disgusting. And again, I think it's probably because of all this footage we've got of it. You've got all different angles and all different pictures from the events. You've got hundreds, thousands of videos from the day, multiple documentaries, movies. It is probably the greatest conspiracy of our time and the greatest disaster in my lifetime.
Like, not. Well, I was going to say not in terms of
It's-
numbers,
it's-
but
it's
yes,
a
in terms
loss
of numbers, because
yeah.
from there they ended up going to bloody Iraq and Afghanistan, and like
war and terror.
like 1 million civilians have died in those invasions.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty big deal. Like, what?
Pretty huge, huge fucking deal.
Yeah.
But it's the war on terror. And Phil, how can a war on terror, how can a war on terror ever be won? Because there's always going to be something that's...
You're sort of perpetuating it.
That is the terror. You can't win a war on terror.
If you're waging war, like, you're attacking people, that's always going to result in other people going, oh shit, now I feel like I need to attack you because you're attacking us. People don't generally like lay back and just go, oh yeah, these invading forces are probably right. Let's just let them bomb the shit out of it. You know, that's going to generate people wanting to fight back and stand up, and because no matter what they're claiming they're doing, if you're living there and being like seeing the bombs like drop from the planes landing like in your city or whatever,
Well, just look at all the hundreds of
that's
children
all you need to know, that they are an enemy, because they are a fucking enemy, really.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what like justification they're given for coming in, whether it be weapons of mass destruction, whether it be trying to promote democracy and democratic values rather. At the end of the day, if you're being bombed on, they're the enemy, because they're the ones that are most likely going to have you killed.
Yeah.
So let's try and fight back against that. So any war on terror is doomed to fail from the outset. You've got, like, if you really want to get into it, like, why these people want to come and do this kind of thing, like, you know, commit acts of terror, then you've got to sort of figure it out from an ideological point of view. You've got to figure out, why do these, like, first of all, what's their culture, what's their ideology that's wanting them to do this? And secondly, what's the psychology behind it? Like, why are humans susceptible to going down that path? You know, and then look at the sociological aspect, like what conditions are there that are facilitating this kind of shitty behaviour. You know, you've got to like study it really, like, academically. In my book, like, if you want to try and tackle it, if you actually want to try and eradicate something like terrorism, you've got to understand it, like, on all these like different all these different levels before you try it. Like, I think just going in there guns blazing, that is like the first thing you would think of, and it's not like, generally the first thing you think of isn't usually the best like strategy, is it? Like, that's just your emotion.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit, they've done that.
Instinct.
Crap, now I want to go and do that.
Yeah.
But really, it's not going to be like long lasting, is it? Like, it's not really going to work in the long term. So I think to get rid of all that shit, well, I don't know how, but the first, like, the starting point is trying to understand it.
Yeah, it's a very good point, Phil. I want to play something for you now, and the listeners. I want to see what you think of it. So this is the final moments of Kevin Cosgrove.
Smoke, 105, 2 pounds. It's really bad. It's black. It's iron. My wife thinks I'm all right. I called her and said I was leaving the building. I was fine, and bang. It's the 3 of us. 2 broken windows. Oh, God!
So, what did you think of that?
Well, that was absolutely horrific. That was terrifying to listen to. Like, put yourself in his shoes.
Yeah.
Like, wow. That is terrifying. Being trapped beneath you is fire.
Or the air around you is just smoke.
Yeah.
And black. He said he couldn't see anything around him. He needs oxygen.
Presumably, so I think he was like above
He would have been
the
above
impact
it,
of the plane.
It'd be awful.
That's not
and then
good.
if the tower just crumbles around you.
Yeah. Just horrible. No, that was terrifying listening to that. I mean, imagine what that must feel like. When he says we're young men, we're not ready to die.
And he's told his wife, and she thinks he's okay.
Yeah, like, my God. See that when you hear stuff like that, that's goes back to what you were saying before. Where like, yeah, your own people couldn't be part of that. Surely,
Yeah.
surely
They wouldn't do that. Yeah.
Like, but Maybe.
Maybe they would.
Maybe they would. The more they're willing to do it in other people's countries.
Well, this is true.
So why wouldn't they be willing to do it in their own?
I tell you what really gets to me is when you see people jumping and people falling from the towers. Well, you say falling, I mean, did they choose to jump? And these people that they say are jumping, did they slip? Because people are hanging on the side of the towers to get oxygen. And did they just slip? Did people?
Most of them seem like they jumped out. Right?
Most of them do seem like they
But is it like a conscious choice, or is it just your body's just reacting to when the heat gets too much and the smoke's too much? And does the body just try and run and it doesn't quite realise that it's running to death?
Maybe your body could take so much in the heat, and then you go with the lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
Which is probably the better way to die, I suppose.
That's something that, you know, what I like. Sounds weird, but I would like to know, like, is it a conscious choice? Do you know what you're doing in that scenario?
Or do you just,
or is it
does nature take over?
Yeah, is your body just reacting?
Have you seen the photograph of the two people who jump holding hands?
That rings a bell.
I mean, it's...
I haven't seen a lot of this stuff for years. Like, it was...
It's upsetting, really, when you think about it. I mean, you don't know if these were family members, colleagues, or they loved each other.
That suggests people that knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely heartbreaking.
People just fall into their death. I mean, a lot of people sort of like, I mean, look at this guy here. I mean, that looks like he's jumping out of the area that the planes went in. So I mean, the heat in there would be insane.
Especially if it was enough to melt steel.
Well, that's the thing. It's just, I mean, look at this. Feet on fire.
God almighty.
It's horrible, isn't it? I'm just going to work. I'll be back tonight, and then something like this happens.
No, it's just absolutely devastating. There's nothing really good about any of it, because, well, the only thing is it brings people together, but what did it bring them together to do? To support an invasion of another country. And then all that's happening there is a load of other innocent people are going to get caught up in the crossfire. You know? The dude didn't have weapons of mass destruction. You know what I mean? Like, it's just fucked up, man.
It's horrible. I mean, I think some people can feel reassured in the fact that rumour has it you would die on the fall. I mean, even if
before you hit the ground.
Before you hit the ground, you'd have died. Whether that's true or not, I'm not sure. But either way, when you hit the ground, you know, it's game over anyway.
I would say there's going to be a big portion of it, that's going to be conscious, like, you know.
I don't know if can your lungs take that sort of fall. Yeah, would you black out? Yeah, but I think skydivers only drop so far, don't they? And have they not got like a sort of like a glider suit on?
Well,
it's more controlled.
Parachute?
Yeah.
They're surely jumping out at like free fall speed. There's no resistance until you put the parachute up. I think you would be conscious, like, maybe it's not up to the point of impact, but like for a big portion of the fall, I think you're going to be awake. And then that must seem to last forever as you're falling, especially when the friggin' building's so damn high.
Yeah.
Imagine how much time slows down when you're in absolute crisis. So it must just seem to last an absolute lifetime.
It's awful. It's awful.
I can't imagine it really.
No, I can't imagine being in that sort of situation where
suicide is the only option.
Yeah.
There is no other alternative. You have to commit suicide.
Or you will cook.
Or burn to death.
Yeah. And your body, breathing in smoke doesn't sit right. You can't do that as a human being.
Yeah.
You need to get out of there. And if suicide's the option, then
imagine that. That is the worst situation to be in. Your two choices are death.
And which option do you take? You know, which form of death?
Like there is no way out. Whatever you decide, you're dead. That's the fucking worst scenario possible.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Like, yeah.
That is terrible, man. It's horrible.
It is. awful. Which is, this is one of the most disturbing aspects of it. I mean, obviously there's people in the planes.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like...
And they died, but we can't see them, so we don't sort of feel as much sympathy towards them as we can see these people who are, for instance, stuck above where the planes smashed into towers, and they're, you know, waving white flags out the windows and things, and they're stuck. They're like fish in a bucket. They're stuck up there. And yeah, the services, you know, like that Kevin Cosgrove there when he was talking to the 911, the woman on the line. She knew that there was probably not a hope in hell that he was getting out of there.
Yeah, there was just nothing she could say.
But
really.
they've been told, you know, in that rule, they've got to keep calm, keep control.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine how hard that would be. You're talking to somebody who's... But at the same time, imagine the annoyance and the pain that he was going through talking to somebody who's so calm, who's not in his awful situation.
Yeah, he needed help right there, right then, and it just wasn't a possibility.
No.
Like, he was fighting for his life during that call. It was like, please come and save my fucking life now.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to die. And then when they collapsed, shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hideous.
Horrible stuff.
It is horrible stuff. But let's talk about something daft. The story that revolves around the Pentagon.
Yeah, just absolutely ridiculous.
Insane.
On so many levels,
yeah.
Insane. One thing that I find interesting, and this has been like sort of like, there's been a lot of back and forth on this, but the whole ground effect, which is when a plane is travelling so fast, it shouldn't technically be able to like fly so low. So if it's travelling 500 mile an hour, as they said it was, it shouldn't have actually been able to be just like a few feet off the ground. Like that. What I've heard is a lot of pilots and I've said that that's technically impossible. Other people have said that would take like a really skilled pilot multiple attempts to get that. Whereas supposedly this guy wasn't that good at flying planes at all.
No.
And nailed it in one.
Yeah.
So that's a bit crazy. Secondly, all these cameras definitely would have picked up what actually happened. Yeah, they only released 5 frames of one particular camera, and it doesn't show a plane.
No, it doesn't. It shows an explosion.
Just an explosion,
and it shows
something. A little bit of something. It shows
a lot of frames. I watched it earlier tonight. You see something coming in for like 2 frames, and they're not clear. You've then got the explosion.
Yeah.
Beyond the explosion, you've got plenty of frames of the smoke and things.
Yeah.
So have they removed these other frames? Was this a missile strike? Was it a smaller aircraft?
Well, that's it. What was it?
What was it?
And why?
And where's the wreckage?
Yeah, exactly. Where is the wreckage? Why is there such a tiny hole in the Pentagon?
And if they've got nothing to hide, why aren't they telling me?
How did it vaporise upon impact? That never ever happens, ever.
Yeah, and why is there no marks on the building from where the wings would have been?
Yeah, the wings.
Why is it just a small squared section? No.
Yeah, it's just it doesn't fit in the hole.
No. And surely you could say, okay, well, yeah, the plane still went in. Well, all right then, but why aren't the wings? You know, the wings wouldn't have tucked under. The wings would have probably, because they're a lighter material.
Well, they would have just snapped off, presumably, and just like stayed outside of the building, like.
And you've got the engines on there. Where the fuck did the engines go? Surely they would have caused an explosion that would have, you know, made the area of the hole bigger.
Yeah, like created like a big.
At the very least, yeah.
But of course, that's ridiculous to say that, David, because the plane actually vaporised on impact.
It did.
Yet we could still identify all the bodies.
And it's not just that. The other side of the building, there's a hole apparently where the front of the plane was meant to come out of. Where's the front of the plane?
What? I've never heard that one before.
That was like an entrance, the entrance area, which is where the bomb went off. Where I say bomb went off, we don't know. Where obviously it's all crumbled and it's all destroyed. There was a hole on the other side where it was meant to come out of, or part of it was.
Oh. Was it not supposed to just like be eaten up by the building? Because there's quite a few rings around, isn't there? I've never heard that where it like came through the other side.
Not the entire thing. I think it was just like an exit hole.
Oh, like from one of the rings of the Pentagon.
Well, no, so I think it was just like behind the main block that got destroyed.
Yeah. So like the first like ring type.
Yeah. And it was meant to come through.
Yeah. And something interesting about that actually is there was a shit ton of was it steel reinforced concrete, like feet and feet of it.
What is this?
Like specifically in that side of the Pentagon.
Really?
It had just been reinforced like months earlier, something like that. Just happens to fly into that part.
Perfect.
Like the Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld, he just happens to be on the complete opposite end of the building.
Yes, I've heard that before. He was in a meeting or something, wasn't he? Wasn't he in a meeting to do with bloody hijacking or something like that?
Either that or increasing the defense budget. We need more money. Oh, we've just been attacked.
Oopsie.
Yeah, see, I told you guys, we definitely need more money now.
Phil, I'm gonna put the video on from the Pentagon of the supposed.
So this is
plane
like the
going.
only supposed footage that we have, because that's all that's been really. Yeah. Those 5 frames.
And it's dismal. Let's watch this. Because he has the shot from the security shot. Nothing yet. There's a security vehicle going past. I mean, this footage looks like it's from the 1960s or something. It's dismal.
It's fucking stop motion.
This is a security camera.
Take crime stoppers. Oh, there's something. Well, now it's exploded.
See? That's a big explosion. But whatever hit it was tiny. I mean, I'll just rewind that. See, you can't even make out what there. That's the only frame where you can see something. What's that? That's not a plane.
It just doesn't seem like it. Like, people would argue that bit there, specifically like the tail, that does not seem big enough.
No way. That.
You haven't really got much of a
tiny.
point of reference to like tell, but it still does not seem like.
The only point of reference you have is kind of gauging it off the building. If I press play, see, I mean,
like taking it from there, it just doesn't seem at all like that could have been a massive jump. Well, not a jumbo jet, but a jet airliner.
Could it have been a missile then?
I would imagine so. Probably could have been.
Because I think
considering there was no plane wreckage, just tiny little parts.
Tiny parts that you can carry off.
But then these tiny parts.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm sure I've seen pictures where it sort of does look like a bit of like plane shrapnel.
Yeah.
So how did I get that? Was that planted there?
Was it planted there? Was whatever hit it? Was it designed in such a way that it had this debris on board of whatever it was? If it was a smaller plane or a big missile, that it could shoot off. Was this debris already in the area and taken out there just after? Is that crazy thinking? Or was it simply that the official story is correct and that was a passenger plane? But then again, I don't know, I've never heard anybody mention them having family on the plane that hit that building.
I've wondered about that, like. But then they could just get actors to do that shit anyway, couldn't they?
What do they call them, actors again?
I was going to say agent provocateurs,
no,
but that's
no,
something else.
That's something else. Crisis actors. They get these actors in a crisis, and you see the same faces appearing.
Yeah.
There's been rumour of that at the minute in regards to James Foley's mother. That she could be a possible crisis actor, and that the beheadings of him and Stephen Sotloff aren't real.
I've heard a lot of conspiracy stuff around that. Now,
there's more and more coming out every day.
I'm starting to really question that whole beheading stuff now.
The fact you don't see the beheading.
Yeah.
Now, I was talking to somebody about this and they went, "Oh, well, they'll cut that bit out." I think it was my dad. He said, "Well, they'll cut that bit out for TV." I went, "No, I've been online. I've watched the proper video. You see them start. I mean, this is kind of off topic, but it's current, so we'll talk about it. It's terrorism. You see them start the cut. You don't see any blood.
Yeah.
And I mean, come on. As soon as you cut someone's neck,
you would imagine,
throat comes spurting out.
But on the first, see, again, I would say that isn't necessarily like conclusive evidence, because as you're first slicing in, you're sort of like, you're not immediately hitting the veins, are you?
Okay, that makes sense, but let's discuss this point, right? How come these two videos, which are meant to affect the West, and they're meant to get to Obama, ruffle his feathers, and the rest of the world, how comes they didn't show the rest of the beheading? You see so many videos online of a full-on beheading where you see it from start to finish.
Yeah, they usually don't like to edit it. Like
Exactly. So why have this? I will censor that bit out for the West.
I know.
They don't need to see that. Why would they do that?
It?
And then they cut a picture of a body with a head on top. Well, hang on a minute. Anybody can fake that. So
something that I've like thought that looks a bit weird is how like the skyline, like that like area. It's like a computer game. Do you know what I mean? That like blue sky and that the colour. It's like a sort of like a PlayStation 4 type of like setup. Do you see what I mean? Like that doesn't show it so much, but that one looks a bit.
I think it's the fact as well that another point that's been picked up on is the fact that the knife doesn't glisten. And it's like blatantly not sharp. I mean, you can't tell because you're not actually in person, but
yeah.
And there has been a picture posted by an Islamic State member recently of the most recent journalist to be beheaded, Stephen Sotloff. There is I forgot what I was going to say.
He'll come back.
There's a picture of him with a big massive machine gun. Is this an old picture where he's joking around? Is this a new one? Is he working with IS? Is it fake? What's going on?
What, the journalist has got the machine gun?
What I'll do is I'll show you.
Journalists love machine guns.
Okay, so Stephen Sotloff, Twitter pic, okay?
Just hanging out with my guns.
Where is it?
Oh my god.
There it is. But I mean, he has more hair in there. I mean,
just having it large with these friggin' mounted rifles.
He does look kind of like. I don't want to accuse him of being.
Yeah, he does definitely have a Muslim beard.
But he does look like he'd fit in. Now, the risk of sounding racist.
He does. He's got the Muslim beard. The wiriness of it, like.
Yeah.
And how it's a neck beard. Why do they all seem to have that beard? Do you know, like?
I've also heard people saying that they don't think that's James Foley. I mean, I think that looks like.
I need to look into this a little bit more personally.
Yeah, this is kind of off topic, but going back to what we're saying about the Pentagon, questions need answering.
Yeah, please just release some footage, please. Just do that. If a plane definitely hit there, please just release a couple of clips.
Do you think it's going to be one of these things that, in years and years to come, there might be an admission by somebody on the deathbed?
See, you'd hope that, wouldn't you? But like the Kennedy thing, that's still never like.
But you look at that now and you think, come on, that's got to be an inside. I mean, that's got to be an inside joke.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, all these years later,
yeah,
we're still in the same position of, but no one's actually came out and said, oh yeah, I'm to blame for that. Or he was. Lots of people making accusations, but you know what I mean. There's no conclusive evidence. No. I mean, there is a shit ton of evidence, but like, not enough for it to be like popular opinion like across the globe that oh yeah, this is definitely what happened. So I kind of feel like no, I think we'll die in a time where 9/11's still not fully explained, and that depresses me.
Yeah. Have you heard about this mystery plane on 9/11?
No, I believe I have.
And apparently there was this mysterious large white plane hanging about.
Where's this, in Washington or New York?
I believe it was over New York. I should have researched this, but it's just come into my mind as we're doing this. But there's apparently this. I don't want to talk shit. So I think I need to do more research on this. But there was apparently this mysterious plane kicking about, and was it a surveillance plane? Who was it?
Yeah.
So, Flight United 93.
This is Shanksville.
This is the plane that apparently the passengers managed to overpower the hijackers, and in the process the plane crashed into the ground and then, I don't know, disappeared.
Yeah. I think there's been a couple of generally what people I think generally believe is that the United States Air Force shot them down, really. And that they conjured this story to like sort of make heroes of them. Wow.
I'd never heard that.
What, really?
Yeah.
I thought that's just generally what everybody believed.
Is that what apparently is the case? It was shot down.
What, officially?
No. Just because I've never heard this like theory before.
Oh, I just assumed that.
So
like,
instead of just making it seem like they died to prevent another attack, it makes it more logical to make them die as heroes by
like,
saying that they, in the process of getting the plane back, they ended up crashing it.
Yeah.
And they weren't just shot out the sky.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
It's like more comforting on like lots of different levels.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
To hear that version.
That makes a lot of sense.
But I'm sure there's been, I can't really remember exactly who, but I'm sure there's been slip-ups by some of the American like politicians where they've like accidentally stated, yep, that plane was shot down, and then oops, no, I mean when it came down. wait, what do I mean? Did we shoot it down or not? What the fuck am I meant to be saying? You know what I mean? Like, because you're gonna slip up, aren't you? Like Larry Silverstein.
Yeah.
And the decision was made to pull it, and we pulled it. But World Trade Center 7, the owner, who just so happened to have insured the buildings. Yeah. Insured the buildings like a couple of weeks previous to the attacks, and this policy covered terrorism, terrorism.
Was it not a matter of days before?
I think it could have been days. I might have been pretty nice to him by saying it was weeks, but yeah, I think you're right. I think it was just days before, and for what was it, $3.5 billion.
Yeah. No, is he in the Freemasons? Is he one of those? Is he in one of those elite families, or is he just a really wealthy man?
Well, he's a really wealthy
so
Jewish guy, isn't he? So chances are he's in some kind of circle or another. But yeah, so that's one of the big things in the conspiracy world is like when it comes to controlled demolition. Like pull it being a phrase from like demolition experts, meaning to bring a building down. Like,
what about the fact that America's used Bin Laden construction to build buildings for them and pull them down? And is that dodgy or
get
what?
Out of here. They wouldn't do that, would they?
They wouldn't fuck with you. You kidding me?
What about the fact that Bin Laden was being treated in a bloody American hospital? Like, where was it? Somewhere in the Middle East.
So let's talk about Bin Laden, king of the cave dwellers, right? Do you think he was killed a few years back and dumped at sea? Because that just to me seems absolutely fucking insane.
That's just like, nah, that's bollocks, that lad, isn't it? That's just like, oh yeah, whoop, forgot, pretending that Bin Laden's still alive. Crap, let's pretend to kill him.
I think, my personal opinion, he was killed years ago.
He was probably just died years ago from his bloody diabetes or whatever it was. His kidney failure that he had. Wasn't he like pretty ill? He was on dialysis.
He wasn't in the best of health.
Dialysis, like in a cave. You know? Hook me up now! Clean this blood, motherfuckers.
Infidel.
I'm dying.
I really don't think that terrorists in a cave could have organised such an elaborate event as 9/11 and hit the targets as successfully as they did. I mean, 75% isn't bad.
Yeah. See, that begs a question. So who could? If it wasn't the government, who could?
Ooh.
Well, this is where the Jews come into play. A lot of people like to blame them for everything. And you ever heard of Mossad?
Yes.
The Israeli like secret service.
Yeah,
not secret service, like Israeli like special ops guys or whatever the hell. Either way, Jews. They reckon that it could have been them that was behind these attacks, and then try to stage it in a way that makes it look like it was their enemy, i.e. those nations around them that want to bomb them.
So
like Iraq, Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, all these Muslim nations. Like Muslims and Jews tend not to get on.
No, they don't.
So it makes sense to do this and blame it on those guys.
So are you saying that employ a sort of totalitarian tiptoe style event whereby this is David Icke theory, where you want to go from point A to point Z, but you can't go from A to Z too quickly. You're gonna have to go to B to C to D to make it less obvious.
What, the Jews, guys? The
just
Israelis?
That and just the whole,
whoever the hell is behind
9/11,
yeah, well, it would seem that way. It's when you look at what come out of it, it's like traditional David Icke style stuff. Like, what they'll do is they'll stage a massive attack, and then guess what they'll do? They'll use that attack to take away some of your freedoms. Mm-hmm. He was saying that years and years ago.
Oh, that's amazing, man.
And then you get this, and what do you get after September 11th? Pretty soon after, the Patriot Act.
Yeah.
That totally destroys the American Constitution. Like the Constitution is meant to like give you these basic like rights that you're not meant to ever be able. Under any circumstances are they meant to be taken away from you.
Yep.
They're meant to be yours and yours forever.
Not anymore.
But we just got this other act in there that well, we might use it.
I think the next thing will be the guns.
What, take the guns
Taking
away?
the guns, yeah.
I don't think they'll be able to do that.
Why? You think there's too many in circulation?
Well, that, and I think Americans are so...
The right of the First Amendment.
They're so passionate about their guns that I think that would cause a civil war, that. Oof. If the Americans try to take the guns off the people. Nah, I can't see them being able to do that. All the crazy people that live in America. I ain't taking my guns. I love my guns.
I think
love
people...
my country. I think I've heard that
from my
on
country.
Rogan's podcast. Oh, it was some class song where this guy goes, it's like this country song or something, and then there's like a clip at the end of it where it's this guy going, I love my country, I love my guns. Anybody that wants to try and take them, gotta come through me. It's so funny. It's absolutely mental. But you can just imagine like loads of the Americans being like that, like, you want to take my guns, you gotta come through me.
Well, it's like Alex Jones, isn't it? They want your guns, they want your freedom.
Because guns represent freedom.
They're from fluoride in the water.
They do in America, don't they? Isn't that mad? Guns represent freedom.
They're not taking our guns.
You're taking our guns by force. With guns.
I'm hoping that I'll never witness an event like this for the rest of the years I'm alive. I don't want to see.
They're just going to leave it like that rest of the year.
For the rest of the year. Next year I'm good. But no, it's such a heinous act. And
well, I hate to break it to you, but you're going to see a lot more death. Like, war's not going to end in our lifetime. There's going to be a shit ton more of that. Because ultimately, it's quite profitable for certain groups, isn't it? Like,
well, war's a massive...
it makes tons of money, man.
It's a massive
No, not
money
for everyone, but like
business.
there's certain groups that make a lot of money out of war. Halliburton.
Yeah.
You know?
Shout out to you guys.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Halliburton.
Yeah. That wasn't it? Was it Dick Cheney? Was it Dick Cheney, the vice president at the time of like 9/11? Wasn't that his company? Like,
was it? Was he the vice president at the time of 9/11?
I think so. Yeah.
Was he?
There was Bush and then there was Cheney, but I reckon it was Cheney that was like effectively pulling the strings. As it usually is, the number two is generally pulling the strings in these like upper echelons of power.
What about George Bush though? When he's in the classroom and he gets told about what's happened.
He's like a scared child, isn't he? He's like, oh yeah, you know what's quite interesting actually?
What's that?
I saw like a little clip of that clip, like of him of George Bush in the classroom, and they were getting the kids to say a word, like pronounce words and stuff on a board or whatever. And, you know, dog, cat, whatever. A couple of the words were pretty interesting. One of them was plane.
Right.
And what was the other one? The other one was steel. Like steel, as in like if you want like steel good. I thought that's weird. I think that's just a pure coincidence. But I was like, that's a weird one.
Do you know what I think is quite strange as well? I believe at the time he was being told, or he was reading a story about a pet goat. Goat, symbolism, Baphomet, satanic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and from what I've read and what's widely published and publicised, the Illuminati love symbolism.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look at the music industry. It's massive on it, and that's another podcast in itself.
Yeah, the idea is that they get power from flaunting it in your face and you do nothing about it. Yeah. This I think we've mentioned before, willful ignorance fuels their power. You know, so the story goes. What is it? A story? Is it true? I don't know. I don't know what I believe.
Or is it all just conjecture? Conjecture.
Conjecture.
Are we looking for conspiracies where there is none, like we mentioned last time? Or are we bang on the money?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just...
Again, this is where we need the aliens to come down and go, right, listen, it wasn't a conspiracy at all. It was exactly how it describes it. The reason you haven't got these clips of the plane crashing at the Pentagon is because someone accidentally lost the footage. They lost it. That's all. You know what I mean? If the aliens could come down and just tell it, no, guys, just trust us. No, the plane did vaporise upon impact.
Imagine having a discussion with an alien saying, no mate, listen, you're wrong. It's fucking extraterrestrial sitting in front of you, man.
Or they just went, yeah guys, it was actually us. It was just the whole time.
We've got a kink for destruction. I hope I haven't offended anybody.
Especially the aliens.
Especially the aliens.
If the aliens get pissed, we are screwed. Their technology will just vaporize me like a fucking plane in the Pentagon. Sound effects.
Okay, so should we wrap this up, Phil?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it by not doing it anymore.
So this has been a 9/11 special, but we've dipped into a few other sub-genres and gone off on a few tangents related to, I think, what we were discussing there in terms of terrorism and money making and schemes and aliens.
Always comes back to the aliens. It always comes back to the Illuminati and aliens.
It does.
And are they mutually exclusive? Or are they aliens?
Correct. So, I hope everybody's enjoyed this podcast. It's kind of a sensitive subject for some people, but it's something that needs talking about. It's a massive subject, and I don't think we've even scratched the surface with what we've been discussing tonight. There's so much more, and I think me and Phil, I'm speaking for myself certainly, there's a lot more to learn.
There's tons to learn, but then, where you learn it from, what are your sources?
What are your sources? Are your sources reliable?
See, because what gives a lot of credit to the truth movement, the 9/11 truth movement, is that there is so many academic types and specialists, experts actually involved in asking these questions. So you've got people like pilots and engineers, scholars asking important questions about that day and the events on that day, and if they're asking questions and they're experts in the field of things like demolition or flying planes, then if they've got questions, then there are questions to be asked. There must be valid questions to be asked about this official account, and we're probably never going to get to the bottom of it, unfortunately.
No, I don't think we will, but I hope for the sake of the victims, friends and their families, that they get the truth that they deserve, I suppose.
Definitely. I think we all deserve the truth, really, because on so many levels we deserve the truth. Level at the very first level, why should we be lied to by our government?
Yeah.
When it's not for safety, because you can't use safety as an excuse because it's already fucking happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So can't tell you all this for reasons of protecting the public.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, 3,000 people just died. So tell them. you know what I mean? Just give us some friggin' footage of the bloody plane crashing the Pentagon. That's all I'm after. Give me that fucking footage now, and I'll shut up.
There was no cameras. There was just that one camera, apparently.
Just the one. All the other 86 were air. Well, just forget about that.
This, high-level security building, and they've only got one shitty camera.
Yeah, we've spent
in the booth.
Millions on having a missile defense system.
Yeah.
In and around the Pentagon, but we didn't generally switch that on. You're just dormant. You know what I mean?
It's insane.
No, we didn't usually track aeroplanes and stuff in and around Washington DC. We tend not to really care. We're not really that bad.
Nah, we're alright with it. Doesn't faze well. It's mad. It
is.
Anyway, guys, thanks for listening. Hope you've enjoyed this one. We're on SoundCloud now, so you can find some of our podcasts on there. Some of them have had to be taken down because of copyright. Damn!
Copyright skitters.
But hopefully we're going to be on iTunes soon. And like the Facebook page, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter. And yeah, I've got a lot more to come.
Definitely comment on this one.
Yeah.
I
want to know what people think.
Yeah, I would like to hear any kind of input, people that just flat out totally disagree with her.
People that think we're nuts. People that agree with her.
Yeah. But then we haven't really agreed on anything. We haven't actually come to a conclusion yet. The only conclusion we've come to is there are questions to be asked. We haven't said, oh yes, it's blatantly an inside job, isn't it? We haven't said that.
No.
And we haven't said, oh, it blatantly wasn't this or was that. We just said that a shit ton of questions out there to be answered that haven't been answered to an adequate standard. So please, government, answer them. Not our government.
This discussion will go on between us for a while, I think.
Yeah.
Certainly Two Guys, One Garage hasn't finished with 9/11 yet.
No, we're not going to give up on you guys.
We're not giving up. There's so much more to come. There's so much more to come. But you guys take care and sleep tight.
We love you.
We do. Infinite love is the only truth. Isn't that right, Phil?
Everything else
is just illusion.
Is illusion.
Good night. In my brain, just watching these events unfold.
Yeah, when it's one of those like huge events, like world events,
yeah.
like the Diana's a similar one for me, where I remember exactly what happened. But yeah, for me it was walking home from school and some kid came up and said, "You know the Twin Towers? Some terrorists have just flew planes at them." I don't know if he said that, but he basically point out that these planes have been flown into the buildings, and I was vaguely aware what the Twin Towers were. I wasn't 100% sure, but I was like, I'm pretty sure they're massive skyscrapers in New York. Yeah. And I didn't believe him. I was just like, what the hell is he talking about? And then when I got in and saw the footage, it was just like, wow, what the hell am I seeing? Yeah, this is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
It's like a movie.
Yeah. Scary.
It was just the craziest like footage that probably exists, to be honest. Like,
it's one of these events, disasters. It's one of these disasters where we've got a lot of footage of it from the day.
Yeah.
Apart from the Pentagon attack, that's a conspiracy in itself.
Yeah, we'll get there.
But there's so much footage of these towers being hit, and just the entire crisis until the towers fall, and then beyond that, it's got to be one of the best documented disasters of recent times, and probably, in my opinion, the biggest conspiracy of all time.
I would say so, without a doubt, just because of what more.
Hi guys, it's September 11th, 2014. It's 13 years to the day since the terrorist attacks of 9/11, the attacks on America, and we've decided to do a special about it here on Two Guys, One Garage. The content that we're going to talk about today and the opinions that we're going to share are totally our own. We don't want to cause offence to anybody who's listening to this, so let's do this. It's David.
It's Phil.
And it's Two Guys, One Garage, September 11th special.
Holy shit, Martin. That's the other building. That's terrorist. Other building? That's terrorist, bro.
What happened? Oh my God! Oh my God!
Oh my God.
Oh my God!
Oh my
God! The entire building has just collapsed, as if a demolition team set off. When you see the old demolitions of these old buildings, it folded down on itself, and it is not there anymore.
This is as close as we can get to the base of the World Trade Center. You can see the two towers. Debris continues to fall and to rain on the people below. There are people hanging from the windows 90 stories up, and a number of bodies have actually hit the pavement.
I think that there's some really crazy people in this world.
We aren't experts on 9/11. We're just gonna mention facts that other people have. Well, they're not facts, but mention.
The thing is, it shouldn't really offend anybody, really, because there's a lot of holes in the official account.
Well, there is, and
there's just a lot of questions that haven't really been answered, to a good enough standard.
Yeah.
The Pentagon, as you mentioned before, that is the perfect example of, they sort of haven't given us enough evidence to back their official theory.
No.
Yeah. So you'd be stupid not to ask questions about that.
There's a lot of people, most people I speak to about September 11th think there's something fishy, there's something in the water, it's not right, there's some truths aren't being told here. We're getting fed a lot of lies, a lot of bullshit, and it's not cool. It's not cool. There's too many holes in the story.
Yeah. I mean, what I'd like to know is, what's your position on this? Do you flat out believe in the standard conspiracy version of events where it's an inside job, Are you on the fence, or do you believe in the official account?
I don't believe the official account. I think it's far too far-fetched and ridiculous. I haven't fully made my mind up yet, but I definitely think something's not right.
Because that's the thing, there's not really enough evidence one way or the other to sort of pick a side at this point. Is that, like, obviously early on when you first start watching all these like conspiracy doc.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
Absolutely not. I've seen at least 10 people fall to their death and just splat like a ripe tomato. It's awful, but it's I don't know who was at the controls or what was going on in the plane, but it was not a bomb. It was an American Airlines jet that crashed into the tower.
Explosions rocked the Pentagon as well. Apparently, a hijacked plane crashed into the Pentagon.
You can see the firemen assembled here, the police officers, FBI agents, and you can see the two towers. A huge explosion now, raining debris on all of us. We better get out of the way.
Pray that God took them quick. And then we saw the people jumping. We saw what we thought was debris, and we realized it was people jumping.
So, September 11th, 2001, Phil. It was a Tuesday. I'll always remember where I was that day.
And where was that? At school, like myself?
No, came back from school and got in, and my mum was sat on the table in the living room, looking at the TV, staring at the TV, in total shock at what she was seeing.
Yeah.
And I remember that it's stained, it's imprinted in me.
Most conspiracies claim it involves their own government. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like massacring 1,996 people.
Yeah.
Wow, that is a lot of people who did not deserve to die at all.
Just going to work, just having
Totally
a standard day,
yeah.
And then that thousands of people's lives are changed forever, because the amount of people that would have been affected beyond the victims is monumental, just in terms of friends, families, colleagues.
Yeah.
It's huge. It would have affected a huge network of people. I mean, it affected the world.
I definitely did, like, because I remember I was only like 14 or something like that, and I was like straight away I was like, America's not gonna lie back and take that, and I was like totally on their side. Now this little kid in England, got nothing to do with America, but I was thinking, no, come on, let's go and let's sort this out. Let's get whoever's behind this, and I'm pretty sure that's exactly how most Americans felt on that day as well.
And maybe that's one of the reasons why it happened.
Yeah.
Now, to the listeners, you've got to remember that this is a conspiracy podcast. It's one of, I suppose, one of the categories that it falls under. Yeah.
Without a doubt.
So, like I said in the introduction, there, some things that we're going to talk about might offend some people, and that's okay, because everybody's entitled to have their own opinion. We